Wall Street supplied both. The purpose was not to dominate, destroy, or take over, but was really threefold. To keep informed about the thinking of left-wing or liberal groups, to provide them with a mouthpiece that they could blow off steam, and to have a final veto on their publicity and any possible actions if they ever went radical. And we see this, there are countless examples of this going on. In 1967, when King was holding a strategy meeting with the SL, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he was getting ready to come out against the war in Vietnam. And he was ready to break with the Johnson administration, but he knew that doing so would cost the SCLC money. They'd already had a 40% drop the year before. And after his first speech, he comes out again. He says, look, this is going to hurt us. So they're willing to support civil rights, but when they actually started coming out against the war, they started losing money. NGOs are also not just agents of, these foundations are not just agents of capitalism, but smaller NGOs become agents of the state through this control by the capitalists. So groups that were set up to deal with the very real problem of violence against women, instead of coming up with constructive solutions, community-based solutions, end up supporting laws to imprison people and end up supporting law, to basically make the police state more powerful. And this has an unintended consequence of people becoming less willing to actually report their spouses or their partners for battery, because then they'll lose their support, they'll lose their partner, and possibly even suffer physical harm as a result of pushing of retaliation. Also, instead of creating community-based, like working together to solve the issue of violence and however it would be done, it becomes more, the movement's anti-violence movement became more dominated with charity work, setting up setting up shelters for battered women, providing services for battered women. And I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. These are very real needs. But instead of solving the problem, they're putting Band-Aids on the problem. And our movement, the reason we get involved is because we want to fix these problems, not salve over bad wounds. NGOs also enable the state to kind of shed some of the the demands that we put on it. Mm-hmm. So in the 1930s, 1 million people joined and went through the Communist Party of the United States, America. Most of them left. I mean, it was never 1 million people in the organization at any one time. But they got out there, they organized, millions of people marched for benefits that we consider, just, our rights today, like unemployment, Social Security, etc. And we consider, we get our unemployment from the state. We do our work for the state. Well, here in Florida, they have used an NGO, Workforce One, to shut, as an excuse to shut down and to transfer all of as much of their work off the state as possible into a not-for-profit called Workforce One. Now, if you actually have a problem with your unemployment, you can't go to them for help. You still have to go to the state. But they've shut down every office except for 2. There's one in Orlando, there's one in Tallahassee. 1/3 of the population lives in Southeast Florida, and there's no unemployment office down here. And so what are you supposed to do? Drive up to Orlando to see a human being? Or spend a couple weeks calling on the phone, hoping to get through to somebody eventually? And really all Workforce One's job is not to help you with your problems with unemployment. It's to get you a job, to get you off the rolls, to teach you skills that most of us already had, because if we have unemployment, we already know how to get a job, because we had a job. But they'll teach us how to write a new resume or how to go to an interview, as if we didn't know how to do that in the first place.
They won't teach you new, better skills to get a better paying job.
we saw a huge shift away from state-based aid, demands that we put on the state and said, we demand this, you will do this with our tax dollars, to forms of faith-based aid. So under Bush, they started shutting down a lot of their own government services and giving money to the churches who would turn around and give it to you. Now this had the effect, and it was deliberate effect, of promoting religion at the same time. And they wouldn't have any rules saying, oh, well, this is federal money, so you have to obey federal anti-discrimination laws. So this money is going to help charities that were anti-gay, anti-woman, anti-atheist. And another effect of that is that people became more and more reliant on churches for everything. So if you've ever read Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Nickel and Dimed, one of the people that she talks to says the very first thing when you go to a new town is you find a church. Because that church will help you out. If there's any problems, if you need rent, if you need clothes, you need a place to stay, they'll hook you up. This is all stuff that we used to get through the state, Section 8, food stamps, all money allowances, all kinds of stuff like that that we used to, as a community, used to provide, are now done through these organizations. And of course, it has the the result of people becoming more religious. NGOs are also used to dominate other countries or to perpetuate policies that our government would like. In Haiti, there are about approximately 10,000 NGOs. My understanding is that per capita they have more NGOs than any other country in the world except possibly India. India having, has over 1 billion people and 3.3 million NGOs. NGOs are, through given funds for from organizations in the United States, were given $200 million in Haiti to fight against the minimum wage law in 1991. As I understand it, I think a minimum wage law was finally passed in Haiti a couple of years ago. It's about 100 gourds a day. Yeah. I don't know actually what that translates into.
$1, 15.
Yeah. And that's today, 10 years ago. Or actually, it was 20 years ago now. 70% of the NGOs in Haiti are funded by the U.S. government. And the Haitian government actually has very little, because of all this, the Haitian government has been pulled back from more and more from interacting with its own people. And today, after the earthquake, there weren't just physical reasons of the complete destruction of Port-au-Prince and the areas around it that kept the Haitian government from being able to intervene in any kind of meaningful way after this disaster. They also were a withered husk. They weren't, even if there hadn't been an earthquake, and they still needed to intervene in such a way, they wouldn't have been capable of doing it because all of their muscle really are in the form of these NGOs. 19 cents per dollar is spent on food for disaster victims. 5 cents per dollar was spent to pay Haitian laborers involved in the food distribution. 1 cent per dollar went to fund efforts by the Haitian state. 33 cents per dollar went to the U.S. military. And selected NGOs got about 42 cents on the dollar. And we'll come back to this a little later, why these NGOs are getting so much money, but it's not going back to the people they're supposedly serving. Because they serve, they not just serve the imperial agenda, they also share some of its beliefs. So about 40 years ago, you might remember might have heard of, if you were there, if you were around then, you might have heard of it, or since then you might have heard of what happened. It's called the Green Revolution. Really introducing new farming methods to the former colonial world, new techniques, new seeds, and really what this did, and the idea behind it was that there's all this starvation in the third world because there's too many people and not enough food. So we'll grow more food and then nobody will starve anymore. Starvation has actually continued apace Because the real problem, it was never that there wasn't enough food, it was never that there were too many people, it was always that